Have you ever had a job you loved, but a boss who made every single day a nightmare? I'm talking about the kind of boss who seems to enjoy making you feel small, incompetent, and completely powerless. That was my life. My name is Sarah, and I was a teacher. For years, I poured my heart and soul into my students, creating a classroom that was a safe, vibrant space for learning. I loved seeing their eyes light up when they finally understood a difficult concept. That was my why. But outside my classroom door, a storm was always brewing. My principal, Mr. Harrison, ran the school like his own personal kingdom, and his reign was one of fear and intimidation. It started subtly, a backhanded compliment in a staff meeting. A comment about my lesson plan being ambitious with a dismissive wave of his hand. I brushed it off, telling myself I was being too sensitive. I was new after all. I just needed to prove myself. So, I worked harder. I stayed later, I volunteered for everything. I created innovative projects that got the kids genuinely excited about history. My classroom became a little island of positivity in a sea of anxiety. But the harder I worked, the more Mr. Harrison seemed to target me. He'd observe my class, standing in the back with his arms crossed, his face a permanent scowl. Afterward, he'd call me into his office and tear my lesson apart, not on its educational merit, but on tiny insignificant details. The font on a worksheet wasn't to his liking. I'd used a blue pen instead of black on my daily log. He'd belittle my ideas in front of other teachers, calling them childish or a waste of resources. He once threw a stack of my students' graded essays on his desk, saying my feedback was overly emotional and that I was coddling them. I felt my passion, my spark, being systematically extinguished. The atmosphere he created was toxic. Other teachers walked on eggshells. We shared worried glances in the hallway but were too scared to speak up. Everyone had a story about Mr. Harrison. He denied one teacher's request to leave early for her child's doctor appointment, saying it showed a lack of commitment. He'd publicly shamed another for a typo in the weekly newsletter. We were all isolated in our fear, convinced we were the only one he truly disliked. He was a master manipulator, making each of us feel like the problem. I started to dread going to work. My stomach would be in knots every morning. I lost sleep, I lost weight, and worst of all, I started to lose my confidence. I began to second-guess every decision, every word I said. Was I a bad teacher? Was he right about me? The breaking point came during a parent-teacher conference week. I had a parent who needed to reschedule last minute due to a family emergency. It was no problem for me. I was happy to find another time. When Mr. Harrison found out, he stormed into my empty classroom after school. He accused me of being unprofessional, of not respecting the school's schedule. His voice got louder and louder, his face turning red. He backed me into a corner of my own classroom, my sanctuary, and his voice was booming. He jabbed his finger in my face, telling me I was a pathetic, spineless excuse for an educator and that he had no idea why they hired me. In that moment, something inside me snapped. It was the fear breaking. I looked past his angry face and saw the posters my students had made, the colorful projects hanging on the walls, the little notes of appreciation they left on my desk. This was my space. These were my kids. And I was a good teacher. I deserved respect. I stood up straight, looked him directly in the eye, and in a calm, firm voice I said, "Do not ever speak to me that way again. Your behavior is unprofessional and it is unacceptable." The shock on his face was almost comical. He was speechless. No one had ever stood up to him. He just sputtered, turned on his heel, and stormed out of my room. My legs were shaking, my heart was pounding, but I also felt a surge of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Strength. I knew I couldn't be the only one. That night, I made a choice. I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. I started a document. I wrote down the date, the time, and a detailed account of what had just happened. Then I started working backward, documenting every incident I could remember. The belittling comments, the public humiliations, the unfair criticisms. dates, times, witnesses if there were any. It was painful to revisit, but with every word I typed, I felt more in control. The next day, I took a deep breath and approached one of my colleagues, a veteran teacher named Carol who I'd always respected. I quietly asked if she had a minute to talk after school. In the privacy of her classroom, I told her everything. When I finished, she just nodded. She said, "Honey, you have no idea. Let me get my notebook." She pulled out a journal filled with her own documented experiences with Mr. Harrison, going back years. We weren't alone. Far from it, that day we made a pact. We decided to talk to other teachers, one by one, discreetly. It was like opening a floodgate. One teacher had emails. Another had recorded a particularly nasty voicemail he left her. A third had a formal complaint she defiled with the district years ago that had been completely ignored. We discovered that he had a pattern of targeting passionate, dedicated teachers, especially women. We compiled everything, a mountain of evidence. Timelines, witness statements, emails, recordings. It painted a clear, undeniable picture of systematic workplace abuse. We knew that going to the school district as individuals hadn't worked in the past. We had to go as a group. 10 of us walked into the district superintendent's office together. We laid our meticulously organized binder of evidence on her desk. We spoke one by one, sharing our stories. We were no longer scared, isolated individuals. We were a united front. We were professionals demanding a safe and respectful work environment, not just for us, but for the good of the entire school and its students. The superintendent was stunned. Faced with such overwhelming, well-documented evidence from so many staff members, she couldn't ignore it. She promised a full and immediate investigation. The investigation was swift and thorough. Mr. Harrison was placed on administrative leave, and within a few weeks, he was removed from his position. The day the news was announced, a wave of relief washed over the entire school. It felt like we could finally breathe. The dark cloud that had been hanging over us for so long had finally lifted. The school's atmosphere changed almost overnight. Teachers started collaborating again, smiling in the hallways, sharing ideas without fear of ridicule. The joy returned. Standing up to my boss was the scariest thing I have ever done. But it was also the most empowering. It taught me that my voice matters and that there is incredible strength in unity. If you are in a similar situation, please know you are not alone. Document everything. Find trusted allies. Your safety and your well-being are paramount. You deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Don't let anyone extinguish your spark. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please consider liking and subscribing for more content. Take care.